I don't think this guy's ever seen the light of day. That may affect whether he, decides to testify. We will see. Stay where you are, Judge. Good stuff. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. They are on a break in South Carolina. We'll rejoin when they do. Stay where you are.
All right. Well, while we're on break here, Jessica, would you give me a call if you could, please? Yeah. Right now they are on break. Yeah, I had my mic off. Sorry, I was fielding a phone call. So I apologize. But if you would please, Jessica, give me a shout real quick. I believe you have the number. I'd love to just kind of pick your brain um, on 1 second here. I'm going to send you the number again. Right. Any details that you want to fill us in on real quick? Just give us a quick shout, and let's chat for 2-3 minutes here, and see if there's anything that you could enlighten us with that we may not be aware of. Also, questions, comments, anything from the stream here. What are we feeling? What are we feeling right now? Their sound is, yeah. It was, I had it muted, guys. Yeah. So standing by. Honestly, anybody that has a quick theory you want to throw at me, the phone number is listed right there on the media page for Facebook. Let me go ahead and throw that up here for you again one more time, so as that you have it. And again, I encourage anybody to call in with any thoughts, comments, concerns, radical theories, or whatever else you might have. The number is 262-843-5556. That's 262-843-5556. If you want to call into CJTV, chat with me, your host, CJ, a little bit about this crazy case with Alex Murdaugh. And yes, I'm going to call him Alex Murdaugh because, well, he's a world-class D-bag. So I could call him anything I want. But Jessica, you don't have to have vision to make a phone call. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Audio, that's all you need. Just dial the phone number and chit chat. But it's, what it is. If you can't talk, you can't talk. I get it. Honestly, so the question being asked by Bonnie Moss on Facebook is, do I think he's getting away with this? Honestly, at this point, kind of. Yeah, I feel like where he's at with the trial right now, there's a good chance that he might get away with it. Hold on for just a second. Let me go ahead and see who this is calling. Right.
4 of the case against
Good
Alex
afternoon.
Murdaugh.
This is CJ
It
at
is
CJ
coming
TV. How
to
can I
a
help you?
head there. This is kind of the prosecution's crescendo. We think they're going to wrap up tomorrow. They are on a break. And that
Good
means we have a
afternoon.
chance
This is
to
CJ
talk
at
to
CJ
our
TV.
own
How can I
Jennifer
help you?
McKelvey, who is down there. She's been in the courtroom since the beginning.
Hello.
Boy, today,
Who am I talking to?
this lead investigator, I was squirming a lot
Who's this?
for him. How did that?
Hello. Hello.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure this out.
What are you trying to figure? Who's this?
Okay, this is Jessica. Sorry about that. I think I figured it out.
What were you trying to figure out exactly? The speaker part goes to the ear.
Vision. I have constant double vision, so I was trying to dial and then turn my sound down at the same time, and it gets a little bit hard for me. So I'm sorry.
Just don't.
I know you guys wanted me to call.
Don't let it happen again. All right, we'll have to have that conversation. Right.
Okay.
All right. So Jessica, fill us in. Where are we at right now? I know you've been following this trial pretty closely, and I know that everyone that's watching it now has been doing the same. Tell us some of your thoughts. What are we feeling about the prosecution right now in the case that they're presenting?
I mean, I'm just gonna basically go off what someone had suggested, one of my theories, and just based off everything that I think that the prosecution's shown, I kind of feel like I've always kind of thought from the way that the crime scene was botched from the beginning, they left out things that they didn't, they should have done. I kind of almost have thought maybe they purposely did it because of either ties to the family, and maybe they just have to try someone to make it look like they were trying. I mean, this is just a theory. I'm not saying I'd believe it or anything, but I mean, it just seems like there should have been more that they could have done, if they really wanted it to look at he was, guilty for sure.
Well, I was kind of wondering about the whole thing too. Because right now we're basically into what I find to be kind of wild conspiracy theory, right? Like I keep saying, any idea you can come up with is probably just as probable as or plausible as whatever the prosecution is trying to prove at this point, because they've done a phenomenal job of, I feel, tanking their own case. I haven't seen anything from them that's really been damning. There's been a few things that have popped up, especially where basically, if they would have just shown the testimony that he gave during the interrogation, I think that would have been some of the more damning evidence and then cross-examine that. But what I'm not not confident with right now is that, well, there's no physical evidence. They don't really have anything solid on the physical evidence side, but then everything's kind of circumstantial there. But what the problem that I think that is happening is they've bored the jury to a point where they're confused as well. And it's but I've been looking at it, and I kind of feel like what we're seeing here is again, crazy theory time. But what if they know that there's this drug cartel, whatever you want to call it, involvement? They're like, all right, cool. If these people get mentioned or brought up in this trial, everybody's dead, right? Who knows if it's all prosecution? Maybe it's both attorneys. Who knows? But they're like, all right, cool. He'll get off of the murder charges, but he'll spend the rest of his life in prison for all of the financial crimes. No matter what, he's cooked. He's going to be in prison for the rest of their life. And then what they're saying is, hey, here's how this is going to work. You can either go to prison for the rest of your life and have a badge of protection by our gang or our people, or you can go to prison for the rest of your life and have your face cut off in the shower room by our people. Your choice,
And that for financial crimes, you go to different prisons than if you were guilty of murder.
Well, the feds, right? So the federal penitentiary is typically where they would go there. That's no joke either. I mean, the feds are no joke, and you do straight time there. You don't get any good behavior time there. Those guys are doing solid time. They don't get a third off for good behavior. You're doing federal crime. Federal crime is a federal time. You get 35 years, you're doing 35 years. And Alex Murdaugh's not going to survive 35 years in prison. He's not making he's not making it more. With the way he's run things and his ties to the drug world, you don't make it long. You know what I mean? Because he's going to look to strike a deal at some point, and they're going to either kill Buster, follow that. Is Alex Murdaugh's mother still alive right now?
She actually is, but she's not doing very well. I've heard that she's actually in the last days of her life right now. That's why actually they originally allowed him and his sister to make contact when they first saw each other. Like that's why he was allowed to hug her.
Right. Yeah, it was interesting. I saw him hugging people in the in the stands and whatnot, and that blew my mind.
Yeah, they actually moved them back because they were practicing stuff.
Yeah. Murder. They've been in shackles. They're not exactly able to high five and hand out bubble gum to friends and family. So,
you may continue.
Right.
So, and actually, supposedly those clothes are his lawyers, the lawyer's family clothes.
The ones he's wearing.
He wears the navy jacket a lot.
Yeah.
Just a few loose ends, Joe.
Bahama shorts on right now, though.
In your investigation, you did not identify any life insurance on the lives of Maggie and Paul. Is that correct?
No, I did not.
But yeah, I mean, and then back to that theory also.
One of the things that was asked of.
I also think it's possible that there was someone maybe higher up that thought that maybe they were going to be implicated with all of the stuff that was going down, and they decided, well, we need to hurry up and take care of this before, that happens, and then put everything on him. I mean, you never know. Like you said, any theory is possible at this point other than the defensive.
And that's it. That's it. I feel like right now what we're looking at is really just a straw grab. You know what I mean? Because there's not a lot of hard evidence, but I've been saying from the jump, the second that I was like, I wonder if there's drug involvement here. And literally I just went to Google and I was like, hey, I Google it. And of course it pulls up that connection with the Walterboro Bloods and, and with the intercoastal.
Did you look up his connections with Thomas Barrett Boulware?
I started looking into that last night. Yeah.
That is very interesting. He actually co-owns a lot of the properties that he had with them along many waterways. And he actually got Moselle for $5 from them, the Boulwares.
Right.
It's very interesting. It's like a rabbit hole. Like it just never ends.
I don't think, honestly, I really don't feel like they're going to come to. The way I see it is if there's not enough evidence to point to one thing, then it could be anything, right? And so, but I think with a situation like this, he knows 100% more than he's telling us. He absolutely knows what happened. And that's the thing. So no matter how we shake it, he was involved in the deaths of Paul and Maggie. That being said, when you move past it, so either he himself did it, he was there when it happened, he knows who did it and is under threat of some kind of violence, which is why he looks the way he looks. And he's in that nervous tick at all times.
Yeah. And that's why his family could be still supporting him so much too.
Because they know he's maybe taking the brunt of it because, and who knows? I think honestly, he probably got in with the wrong people and they are saying like, hey man, this is what it is. Our name comes up. You're a goner. So is Buster. So is your mom. We're going to kill everybody in your family. Your legacy dies. That's it. There's no more Murdaughs. And your sister and everybody else is a goner. We're going to kill everybody. We already violently murdered your wife and your son. What do you think we're going to do to the rest of them? You know what I mean? So I think that Paul screwed up. I mean, I know people that would, in another life that I lived, I knew people that would mug you for your shoes. They're talking millions of dollars involved here. And that's just for the financial crimes. Who knows how much money he cycled through the drug connections that he had. And everyone that I know from that area, from South Carolina, they talk about the intercoastal waterways, all of that in the arterial feed that runs from Miami to New York, guns, drugs, all the things involved. And they were saying that he was one of the largest pushers in that county. And so you don't get involved with that much money and not have people that sit a little bit higher than you see that aren't saying, hey man, let's just get rid of the dummy. You know what I mean?
I think that contributes to his constant need for more and more money, which is why I think that he kept stealing more and more because you just kept on owing more people money.
And it could go all the way back to the first murder, the kid on the street, Stephen Smith. It could go, Smith. It could go past that. You know what I mean? It could go to the housekeeper. They were like, all right, cool. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to kill your housekeeper. We're going to get paid on that. We're going to take that the millions of dollars that got paid out there. We're pocketing that money. But now your hands are dirty. I was recently, if anyone's watching Yellowstone, if you guys watch the season 4 finale, like the way Beth does her brother, that scene where she's like, you should have taken option 1 or 2. That point where they own him, there's a good chance that he's at this point just a financial puppet for any one of these people that are sitting in a powerful position of a cartel status, if you will, or in a gang status. And, everyone's got a killer, on speed dial when you got millions of dollars at play. You know what I mean? You don't make it there through the dirty lines of dirt of crime without probably having to bury a body or two. So,
Yeah, no family knew how to get rid of people. They said that if anybody like crossed them, or if there was somebody that they didn't like, his dad and the original Buster, they'd make you crab bait. So that's another reason too. I kind of don't think he did it, because knowing his family, I think they would have had other ways and other means to do it, and a better alibi. And he wouldn't have done it at his house, being a lawyer, knowing that it was going to be eventually searched.
Yeah.
And he gave permission for them to search it that night, and they didn't do it until September.
Right. Yeah, I think the way that they were shot with multiple guns, I feel like obviously there was probably 2 shooters. Maybe it was him and a cousin Eddie. Who knows? Yeah. Like I said, things are going to come out. I think it's going to be like a holy shit. That tracks. That totally tracks. John B from over on Facebook says he had a friend that was killed for his disability check. I was in jail with a guy who at one point was he did the same thing. He had killed a guy for his Social Security money, and while he was in lockup for a drug charge, he told his cellmate about that murder. That cellmate used that information, much like what happened in the Mark Jensen trial, turned that into the state so he could get off of his charges. And then while he was on trial for that murder, he got brought up on, and he got indicted on 5 different murders. And it turns out the guy was a hitman for some biker gang, in his younger years, before he joined the Navy. And so crazy times, but people do radical things for that sum of money. But it looks like they're back in court now, Jessica. I want to have you call me again so we could talk a little bit more about some of the questions that people have. But we'll have to set up a segment during a lunch break, maybe tomorrow or Friday, and we can have you on.
Call me too if you want to.
Okay. Yeah. We got my number, and I know you're always on, so I'll send up the bat signal and have you give us a shout, you guys. So Jessica, thank you for calling in, and we're going to jump back into court here, but I will touch base with you here before we set that up. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for everything. Love you guys.
Hey, thank you so much, Jessica. We love you back. Guys, that was Jessica calling in, one of our, one of the faithful of our community here, calling in from Facebook. Again, if you got theories, thoughts, comments, questions, concerns about the case, or anything else going on in the world, give me a shout. The number is in the comments, and I'll make sure to repost that. You can also find that on my Facebook page over on YouTube.
And did you get more detail?
Get in touch.
I got more detail on June 10th.
We're an open community here of communication.
And on August 11th, did you give some information and then try to gain some information?
That is correct.
And Mr. Griffin asked you about that shirt and all. Did he say, Bo, hold on, let me go get that thing and bring it back to you right now?
The shirt? No, sir.
He didn't say, hold on, I'll go and get that shirt right now.
Talking about the white T-shirt?
No, sir.
The blue shirt?
On August 11th.
No, sir.
He was talking.
No, sir.
And he tried to describe it. Did this, what is described as a seafoam shirt? Were you familiar with that?
Leading and misleading.
How would that shirt be described? Do you know in your investigation by the witness who saw it? Ms. Blanca says.
Ms. Blanca described to me that she saw him leaving the house that Monday morning in a seafoam pullover. I believe she characterized it as a Vinnie Vine shirt.
He said a polo shirt leaving that morning.
Yes.
On this video he showed you with the tree, how would she describe that shirt in the tree?
A blue button-up she described as a Columbia-style shirt.
Columbia. Seafoam. Seafoam color?
We don't leave the
Who
witness.
cares what color
tell you
the
what
damn
color
shirt
she thought
was,
it was?
people? Leave it alone. What
The
color
one
is
leaving
it?
that morning.
No, sir.
No, the
one on
one
the tree.
blue.
Oh, dear Lord. These questions are infuriating, man.
On June 7th, June 10th, August 11th, did Alex Murdaugh ever mention anybody else that might be a potential suspect in this case?
No, sir. Other than he continued to mention the boat case, but no specific individual.
Did he mention to you anything about these cowboys that Mr. Griffin's asked you about?
No, sir.
Did he mention to you anything about a Curtis Edward Smith?
No, sir.
June 7th he didn't?
No,
June
sir.
10th he didn't?
No, sir.
August 11th he didn't?
No, sir.
When did he ask you about Curtis Edward? Or when did he bring in Curtis Edward Smith into this investigation? He being Alex Murdaugh.
September 4th, 2021.
September 4th, 2021. And could you tell us how that came about?
Objection overruled.
Continue.
How did it come about that Mr. Murdaugh told you about Curtis Edward Smith?
On September 4th, 2021, I received a phone call from Randy Murdaugh that Alec had been shot, and they were concerned for his safety and what was going on. And I immediately responded along with other agents to the scene. And the scene on Old Salcahatchee Road in Varnville, Hampton County.
And did you go to that scene?
I did.
And did you see the defendant Alex Murdaugh at the scene?
No, I did not. He had been transported to the hospital.
And do you know where he was transported?
I believe it was Savannah, a hospital in Savannah.
And at that point, did you or another SLED agent go to Savannah Hospital to interview the defendant?
2 other agents went to the hospital to interview Alec.
And was one of those agents Neil?
No, Agent Kelly.
Agent Kelly? You in the courtroom? Yes. Will you please stand? Is that him?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. And in the hospital, and what day was this?
September 4th, 2021.
September 4th, 2021. And at that point, did the defendant, or did you learn through an investigation, did he say somebody shot him on the side of the road?
Yes, through the investigation, that's what's told to us.
Well, did he identify anybody on September 4th who shot him?
Not by name, he gave a description.
He gave a description.
Yes.
Did he attempt to pick somebody out of a book?
No, sir. There was I believe a SLED forensic composite artist went down and did a composite drawing with him.
So he helped get a sketch of the person who shot him?
Yes, sir.
Describe the person?
Yes, sir.
Did they actually do a sketch?
Yes, sir, they did.
And at that point, had he mentioned anybody's name else in the investigation that you ought to go back and look at about Paul and Maggie's murder?
No, sir.
After that, did the defendant tell you or your law enforcement friends he was lying about the roadside incident?
Objection to the extent it's hearsay. If he didn't tell this agent, then it's not the appropriate witness.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Did the defendant give another statement about the roadside?
Yes, he did.
Did he admit he was lying?
Statement to you or to someone else?
Statement is someone else, sir.
Objection sustained.
At what point, in response to their question, did the defendant bring in Curtis Eddie Smith's name to this?
I don't believe he ever brought Curtis Smith's name into it. It was through investigation that we developed him as a suspect or a subject involved in the shooting.
And did the defendant give an interview with Mr. Harpootlian and Mr. Griffin via audio phone call where they mentioned Curtis Edward Smith?
Objection's overruled.
I know an interview was conducted. I don't know who was present. I was not present for the interview.
Did Curtis Edward Smith come through the chief investigator's name come out of that interview?
I do not know, sir.
But prior to that day, had Alex Murdaugh ever mentioned to you Curtis Edward Smith or anybody else that might have been involved in his sons or mother's, his sons or his wife's murder?
No, sir.
So after the roadside incident and whatever he told whoever's going to be called, that's when he brought in other people.
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Griffin's asked a lot of questions about the search. The crime scene where the two bodies were, was that secure?
Yes, it was.
Was evidence gathered?
Yes, it was.
Were swabs taken?
Yes, they were.
And I think he asked you about the Suburban, his Suburban, and whether or not there was anything wet in the back of his car. Are you familiar with what's known as a cooler?
Yes.
A good old cooler?
Yes, sir.
Could you put wet garments in a cooler?
You can, yes.
You can.
Yes.
Okay. And he asked you about anything in the car. Was there blood on the steering wheel of Suburban, that car?
There was blood found on that steering wheel, yes.
And that DNA from that blood came back to whom?
Maggie Murdaugh.
Maggie Murdaugh.
Yes, sir.
And he asked you about some guns. Did the defendant hand you a gun?
He handed first responders a gun, yes, sir.
What type of gun was that?
It was a 12-gauge shotgun.
When I say you sometime, I mean law enforcement.
I
I
understand.
apologize. And as a result of swabs, was blood identified on that gun?
Yes, sir.
Whose blood, whose
Maggie.
DNA was that?
Maggie Murdaugh.
Maggie Murdaugh.
Yes, sir.
And was that 12-gauge shotgun consistent or inconsistent with the weapon that killed Paul Murdaugh?
It was the same gauge, being a 12-gauge, and firearms examiner was not able to exclude the gun.
Which means he could include it but not exclude it.
Correct.
And Mr. Griffin asked you about getting out of the circle. When you talk to somebody, are you looking for consistent statements, inconsistent when you're examining or talking to somebody who might be involved? Why are you asking them questions?
To learn more, to see if they tell the same story.
And if that story is contradicted by other witnesses, do you want to know that?
Yes, sir.
And were you going out to check his story with other witnesses?
Yes,
What he told you versus what other witnesses told you?
correct.
As a result of that, were there contradictions between what Mr. Murdaugh told you and what witnesses told you?
Yes,
Shelley Smith,
yes,
Blanca Simpson?
yes.
And he asked you, it's been a long time about this time frame. Why does it matter when he got out to Alameda? Would it matter if somebody's hiding guns somewhere on Alameda? Would you need time to do that?
You would need time, but if you're familiar with it, I don't think you would need that much time.
But would it take time to go hide guns?
5 minutes, 10 minutes. Yes,
Would it take time? Would that be a reason you might have a contradictory statement how long you visited
Yes.
somebody?
yes,
And your car would still be there, wouldn't it?
yes.
Did he asked you about CB Road? Did he ever identify did he ever tell you about a cooler that was found out there at some point that wasn't usually there?
Yes, out by what's been referred to as the skin shed where they process meat.
What was that about that cooler? In the course of your investigation, had that cooler been there before this night?
CB Rowe told us it was not. When he left on Friday, prior to the,
Objection sustained.
Did you see that cooler after Friday?
did I see the cooler on when CB Rowe pointed it out? Yes,
You did see it.
yes.
And was it there Did you see it on Monday or Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning?
Monday night, Tuesday morning, yes, I did see it.
Did you see that cooler again?
I don't recall.
Okay. he asked you about the rain jacket, the tarp, and asked you if, was there any blood or notes everybody's giving me? Is that coat, does that repel water? That jacket, the rain jacket?
Yes, I would think so. Being a rain jacket.
Was there GSR located on that rain jacket?
On the inside of it, yes.
Say it again, on the where?
On the inside,
And he asked you about blood or DNA. Was there a whole bunch of GSR found on that inside of that rain jacket?
yes, it was.
And he asked you about, I believe, Shelley's testimony or about seeing that rain jacket. Did you say he was holding it like this?
Yes, she said it was balled up in his arms.
And he was asking you about timing, I think, unless I'm crazy. That could be there 5 years, 10 years. When did Blanca System, when did Shelley Smith, I'm sorry, tell your investigation, hey, I saw him with this blue vinyl coat? When was that in relation to the murders? Was that 5 years, 10 years? How long was that?
Objection, Your Honor. He's misstating the
Objection
evidence
is overruled.
in the record.
She told us she saw it the day after Mr. Randolph Murdaugh's funeral, which through my investigation,
Objection is overruled.
which would have been June 14th, the following Monday after Paul and Maggie were murdered. So 7 days.
Was there? Now, he asked you about your testimony to the Colleton grand jury.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know it was out there. Did you give them a summary of the case?
The grand jury, yes.
And did that include timeline?
I believe so, yes.
Some of his financial crimes,
Yes, sir.
background?
Yes, sir.
Did that include information the jury hears from some of these lawyers and the financial issues?
Yes, sir.
Did that include whether blackout casings near Maggie were consistent with those or match those found near the house and the property?
It did.
Did it include that the family had 3 blackout rifles?
Yes.
Alex originally had 2, but remembered in the follow-up, one of them had been replaced.
Yes, sir.
That you confirmed that?
Yes.
Did you present whether or not shotguns of similar make and load were found on the property?
Yes.
Did you present that Alex was in possession of a shotgun that was consistent with one of the murderous weapons? Couldn't be excluded?
Correct.
And did you mention to them about Shelley Smith and kind of what we've just been talking about?
Yes, sir.
Did you mention to them about defendant denying going to the kennels 3 times?
Yes.
Leading the witness.
Don't lead the witness.
What did you tell them about him going to the kennels?
That after dinner, he stayed at the house and took a nap. When Maggie went to the kennels and Paul left, he wasn't sure where he went, but that he was never at the kennels after dinner.
Did you mention them about Rogan Gibson?
And the phone call that he had with Paul, and that Rogan had heard. Paul was talking to Paul on the phone, heard Maggie in the background, and he was 99% sure that he heard Alec in the background. And that phone call would have been around 8:44 p.m.
Did you mention about this to the grand jury? This video ultimately got located or downloaded?
That it was found on Paul's phone.
And did you tell them the contents of that video?
Yes, that Paul was taking a video of the dog, Rogan Gibson's dog, Chocolate Lab, and that Maggie was in the background, and that Alec was in the background.
And did you present to them I think some of what we heard, the money he acquired, he being Alex, after this incident, the money he came into?
Yes.
Did you mention to them about whether Maggie intended to go to Moselle that night or not? What did you say to them about Maggie going to, and her plans, or whether she was going to go to Moselle that night or wanted to, if anything?
That Maggie had intended to go to Edisto, but had received a call from Alec requesting her to come home, that Paul was there, which contradicted the statements from the sister, Marion, where Maggie, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Maggie had called Marion and said that she had received a call from Alec, that Alec wanted her to come to Moselle, that Paul was there and his dad was in the hospital. But during an interview with Alec in August, he stated that it was basically a surprise. He didn't know she was coming.
And did you mention to them that a reward had been offered on the offer?
That a reward was offered, $100,000 with an expiration date.
And did you tell them whether or not there was any other information or any other credible evidence pointing to anybody else?
I did.
Mr. Griffin asked you about the scene. It was bloody.
Very bloody.
Defendant said he had touched and rolled, tried to move Paul.
Yes, sir.
Did you see any evidence of that on him?
No.
Your eyes.
I did not see any on Alec. No, sir.
Mr. Griffin's gone. I don't know if it's a good question or not. Did they say go to Alameda?
Who?
Him.
No, sir.
Alex Murdaugh. Any of the lawyers there?
No.
They give you consent to search Alameda that night?
No, sir.
They said go search Alameda.
No, sir.
Is that funny? I'm sorry.
Him addressing me. If I found your question humorous, I'm sorry. I thought it was a funny question. It was a rhetorical question. I asked the court to instruct him not to address me, but the witness. Thank you.
You may proceed.
I guess the point was Griffin said they were bending over, wanting to help, wanting to do all this. Never mentioned Curtis Smith or anybody else until September, right?
Leading.
Can't lead the
I'm
witness.
sorry, I apologize. Did he ever mention anybody else who could have done this, who could have been involved with, who could have killed my wife and my son from June 7th, 2021 until September of 21? Did he ever mention anybody else?
No, he did not.
He's already answered.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Is it police procedure that the
suspect of your investigation is supposed to solve the crime?
No, it's not, but it helps to have information from other sources.
And you were asked a number of what ifs. One what if was like, what if he hid the guns at Alameda? How long would that take? And you said 5 minutes, right?
I said 5 or 10 minutes, depending on if you know the area.
What if you'd gone over there that night and searched Alameda? How long would that have taken?
Quite sometimes.
Ooh,
Large property.
business.
And we would know today that there were no guns hidden on the property.
Well, that night, Alec was not considered a main suspect, and I had no information to go search Alameda for guns.
At what point in time did you ask Alec, did you hide guns at Alameda?
I didn't.
First time that question ever came to you was on February 15th at 4:30 in the afternoon. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, I think you testified about item 22, and I just may not have heard you correctly, but and Mr. Greer's testimony will speak for itself, but the results were he can't say it's item 22 is the shotgun that Alec had when Deputy Green came in, but he can't say, he can't exclude it, he can't exclude it. He can't say anything about it.
Correct.
Okay. Now, you mentioned what Shelley Smith told you in an interview, I take it. Did she tell you? Did you ever interview Shelley Smith?
Yes, I did.
And you testified that she told you that Alec came over there on June 14th in the morning, right? That's what you testified to this jury. That's what she told you.
She told me it was the day after Mr. Murdaugh's, Randolph Murdaugh's funeral.
All right.
Through my research, would have been June 14th.
And you were here in the courtroom when she testified under oath in front of this jury that Alec came over there 3 days later, and it was June the 16th on Wednesday. You heard that testimony, didn't you?
That's what she said in court, yes.
That was her sworn testimony, correct?
Yes.
That's all the question I had.
You may step down. Call your next witness.
State law is David Grubbs.
Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You would please, sir, be seated, state your full name for the record, spell your last name.
My name is David Grubbs, Grubbs.
Good afternoon, Mr. Grubbs. Where are you
Good
employed,
afternoon.
sir?
I'm employed with the South Carolina Attorney General's office.
All right. And what is your job title at the Attorney General's office?
I'm the Chief Forensic Investigator for the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force.
All right. And then just briefly, let the jury know what the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force does.
So we assist agencies throughout the state as well as have our own investigators, and we look into peer-to-peer downloads that go over the internet, usually containing child pornography in them. We also do chat ops throughout the state, posing as minors to attract suspects.
Okay.
My unit specifically does the computer forensics for those cases.
Okay. When you say forensics, you mean, for instance, cell phone forensics, correct?
Yes,
So as part of your job duties, you perform cell phone downloads, extractions, and analyze them, correct?
correct.
And you've gone to a number of trainings in the past that's focused on that.
Yes, sir.
Correct. All right. Can you read for the jury your training in this area, please?
Sure. So I am a Celebrite certified operator, a Celebrite certified physical analyst. I'm a certified blacklight examiner, which both of those are cell phone data extraction tools. I'm certified in Forensic Explorer, which is used to analyze computers. Griffi analyze training, Tigo in the area of magnet forensics, which is magnet makes the tool Axiom, which is one of our primary tools that we use. I've received advanced iOS and Gray Key training, advanced iOS examinations, Magnet Axiom Advanced Mobile Forensics, Axiom-based computer forensic examination, and Axiom Advanced Computer Forensics. I'm also a member of the United States Secret Service Cyber Task Force, Cyber Fraud Task Force to be specific, which runs the National Computer Forensic Institute in Hoover, Alabama, where I've been sent to for basic network investigations, Macintosh forensic training, digital investigation supervisor's course, and I received an award in 2020 and 2021 being ranked in the top forensic examiners with the Secret Service. I've had training from the National White Collar Crime Center, which is called NW3C, in basic data recovery and acquisition, intermediate data recovery and acquisition, basic cell phone investigation, cell phone interrogation, advanced wireless network investigations, GPS interrogation, Windows artifacts, social media, identifying and seizing electronic evidence, encryption, and legal concerns for digital evidence responders. I've also been to the SANS Institute for multiple trainings for advanced network forensics and analysis, advanced digital forensics and incident response, hacker tools, techniques, exploits, and incident handling. I've taken a course with Texas A&M Engineering Service for information security. And then for other forensic softwares, I have had Access Data Bootcamp, Access Data, Mac Forensics, Encase Computer Forensics. And in addition to that, pretty much every year except for when COVID was going on, we'll go to a national training for law enforcement on child exploitation in Atlanta.
All right, thank you. At this time, state would move to enter Investigator Grubbs as an expert in cell phone forensics.
No objections. So qualified.
And Investigator Grubbs, there are 3 cell phones in evidence in this case, and the data associated, you've analyzed some of it, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's talk specifically about Paul's phone. And to your knowledge, was that originally extracted by, I believe, John Van Outen of the Secret Service?
Yes, sir.
And then provided to, that information provided to Lieutenant Britt Dove?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you've received that cell phone information from him, and you've analyzed it as well, correct?
I did.
Okay. And you were asked to focus on a couple of specific areas in your analysis of Paul's phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
One of which was Paul's battery habits and battery usage on his cell phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 530. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And what is that?
That is a report that I generated concerning Paul's phone and battery and shutdown time with the phone.
Okay. And you looked, in the week prior to the murders, you looked at how many times Paul's phone it died because of its battery ran out, correct?
Correct.
You identified those times, right?
Yes, sir.
Times.
Yes, sir.
So how many times that week did his phone die in total that week from the battery?
4.
All right. And what days were those on?
It looks like June the 3rd, twice on June the 5th, and then on June the 7th.
And June 7th, it died when?
It is 22:34, 10:34 p.m.
10:34 p.m. Okay. And one of the pieces of information that cell phones log is when a phone is plugged back in after it's died to charge, correct?
Yes.
All right. And when you looked at this data of when the phone died that week, Paul's phone died, did you identify when it was plugged in?
I did, sir.
All right. And can you just tell the jury on those two, when the phone died each of those times and when it was plugged back in, please?
Sure. So it is logged that on June the 3rd at 12:30:27 p.m., the phone died, the battery went dead, and at 12:34:03, it had power again. It was reconnected.
And I'm going to take that from you. And at this time, state would move to enter Exhibit 530 into evidence.
Submitted.
Should read it now.
you see anything on your screen up there? Oh, here it comes. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so can you zoom in a little bit? There we go. All right, so on June 3rd of 2021, what time did Paul's phone die?
On the 3rd, 12:30:27.
All right, what time is it plugged in?
12:34:03.
About 4 minutes later.
Yes,
correct?
sir.
A little less than 4 minutes, correct?
Yes.
June 5th, the first time, at what time did the phone die?
10:18:33.
All right, and what time was it plugged back in?
10:36:17.
So that would be roughly 17 minutes or
Yes,
so?
sir.
All right, and then June 5th, the second time, what time did it die?
21:23:29, excuse me, or 9:23 p.m.
Okay, and what time was it plugged back in?
21:30:21 or 9:30.
Okay, so roughly about 7 minutes later.
Yes,
correct?
sir.
All right, and you just didn't focus on when Paul's phone died in the data you reviewed, correct?
Correct.
Did you find in what you reviewed, did Paul frequently let his battery get low?
Yeah, he seemed to kind of fly close to the sun. The phone was always getting down to 1 or 2% before he plugged it in.
And would you say, in your opinion, from the data reviewed, the majority of the time he let it get that low, would he ultimately get it plugged in before it died?
Yes, sir.
Except during that week for those specific occasions.
Correct.
All right. All right. And one other thing you were asked to look at on Paul's phone were the times when his screen came on, correct?
Yes.
And when it came off, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's sometimes referred to as the backlight on a phone, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you're specifically asked to look at the time on Paul's phone starting at about 8:49 p.m. on the night of June 7th, correct?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to show you it's been marked as States 529. Take a look at that. And what do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, I created this.
All right. And what is that?
It shows the backlight for the phone when it's kind of going on and off throughout that night.
For what time period?
From the period of 8:49 and then the final time of 10:34.
Okay. At this time, state would move to enter Exhibit 529 of evidence.
No objection.
Submit it. And let's before we talk about this specific data, let's just the jury said it heard some testimony on the screen backlight and the screen coming on. Under what conditions, generally speaking, will a cell phone screen come on?
There's a lot of conditions that'll cause a cell phone screen to come on. If you pick up your phone, that can have the screen turn on. If you get a message or an alert from an app that you have, that can cause the screen to turn on. If the phone senses motion in a particular way, it'll turn on. There's a whole variety of ways that the backlight will
I
activate.
think you may have mentioned this, but the screen can be tapped.
Yes, yeah, you can simply tap your screen and that will cause it to turn on as well.
And so just to in a nutshell, the screen can come on for sometimes there's no human interaction, correct?
Correct.
But it also can be turned on by human interaction.
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Okay. Let's look at the information on your report real quick. All right. Okay, so at 8:49 p.m., looks like the screen goes off, correct?
Correct.
On Paul's phone. And what time does it get, the next time that screen lights up?
The next screen on is at 10:18:08 p.m.
Okay. And in your review of Paul's phone, did you determine during that same time frame, starting at 8:49, was Paul's phone locked or unlocked?
It was locked.
Okay, so it was locked and the screen was off between 8:49 and 10:18.
Yes.
And then at 10:18:08, we see the screen come on, correct?
Yes, it appears to come on for 12 seconds to 10:18:20.
Okay. And then the screen goes back off starting at what time?
10:18:20
Okay. And then it comes back on.
at 10:20:08.
All right. And how long does it come on at 10:20:08?
It goes until 10:20:20, so 12 seconds.
Seconds. All right. And then what happens with this screen?
It goes back off at 10:20:20.
Okay. And it stays off until when?
10:34:16.
And is that the time Paul's phone died?
Yes.
All right. And so the screen may have come on briefly as the phone was
It
showing
looks
up.
like for 4 seconds.
Okay. All right. In your review of Paul's phone, did you identify some of the communications that came into his phone?
Yes, I did.
And did you identify the last text that was sent to Paul's phone?
Yes.
And do you recall who sent that text?
Rogan.
And you may not remember this exactly, but well, first of all, do you recall contents of that very last text from Rogan?
Yes, it just says yo.
All right. And did this jury's heard testimony that cell phones will log when someone actually reads a text.
They
correct?
do.
And did you finding log that text yo was read?
It was not read.
Okay. And do you recall roughly the time that text hit Paul's phone?
I don't off the top of my head.
All right. Was it between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock p.m.?
Yes.
Roughly speaking? Okay. But that was the last text. No other text came to his phone after that text from Rogan that said yo.
Correct.
And in your opinion, if anybody had been looking at that screen that came on at either 10:18:08 or 10:20:08, would they have seen a notification on that screen?
Most likely, yes. You can set your phone to not show contents, or sometimes if you have a text that comes through, it'll show the whole text and the contact. It depends on how it's setting, but yes, typically, if you were to see the home screen of the phone, there would be the notification.
And so, depending on the settings, there's a good chance if anybody happened to be looking at that phone screen either of those times, they would have seen a text notification from Rogan Gibson, correct?
Yes.
And you just testified, we don't know exactly why the screen came on at that time, correct?
We do not.
All right, it could have been somebody tapped it, correct?
Yes.
Somebody may have briefly picked up the phone, correct?
Yes.
It could have been any number of things, correct?
Yes. Any number of things.
And you can't tell us exactly why, though.
I cannot.
Now, this jury's heard a good bit of testimony about phone orientation changes, and we'll talk a little more about that in a minute. But in your opinion, is it possible for someone to just briefly pick up a phone, see the screen come on, put it back down, and for the phone not to record an orientation change?
Sure.
Okay, moving on. All right. And you also asked to look at Maggie's phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
And specifically, what database were you asked to take a look at on Maggie's phone?
Knowledge C.
All right. The jury's heard some testimony on the Knowledge C database, but just please refresh our memories what that is and what kind of information is contained in the Knowledge C database on an iPhone.
Sure. So the Knowledge C database is something that Apple uses in the background to kind of track things that you're doing. It tracks your battery level, it tracks when you plug your phone in and when you unplug it, a whole bunch of stuff that is going on in the background that typically people have no idea is even running.
Okay. Okay. All sorts of information in that.
All sorts of information.
Would some folks be surprised if they saw the amount of information the phone was recording at any given
It
time?
can hold millions of artifacts.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 528. Can I ask if you recognize that, sir?
Yes, sir.
And have you reviewed the contents of that CD?
I have. It's a digital copy of some timeline reports.
Okay.
From Maggie's phone.
And specifically from Maggie's phone?
Yes, sir.
All right. And that timeline report would be from the Knowledge C database?
Yes, sir.
All right. And specifically, you said that the Knowledge C database can contain millions of artifacts, correct?
Yes.
When you prepared that timeline, did you kind of narrow it down a little bit?
Yes, I did.
And roughly what times on that?
I believe from 8 to past 10.
All right. And at this time, State would move to enter Exhibit 528 into evidence.
No objection. Submitted.
Can I have the computer, please? Okay, I'm going to pull up this spreadsheet on the computer that's in evidence on the CD. Even with a fairly narrow time frame, there's still a voluminous amount of data contained in this database. Is that
Lot-
correct?
Lots of data. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, and specifically, let's take it to start time and end time. For this particular report, you kind of limited between time. What's that start time? The first
2053 to 8:53 p.m.
Okay. And we'll scroll down to the bottom real quick. And it looks like it stops at what time?
2108 to 908.
9:08 p.m.
Yes,
On
sir.
what date?
That would be June 7th, 2021.
All right. And there's just a whole bunch of stuff here, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, let's take a look at a couple things specifically. Excuse me. Starting at 2053, we see some orientation changes, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And in your opinion, when you see an orientation change on a phone recorded in an LSC database, what does that information tell you?
Typically, that somebody's handling the phone.
So while a screen coming on or off may not necessarily tell you somebody's handling the phone, the orientation change definitely does, correct?
Yes, it's the phone logging that it's going from either vertical or landscape to the other.
Okay. All right, so let's look at line 1149 starting down to about 1154. You see what I'm talking about there?
Yes, sir.
These lines here, and it says camera. What, in your review of this information, can you draw any conclusions about what's going on, why that camera pops up at about 8:54 in this database?
All I can say is that the phone is interacting with the camera in some way.
All right, did it interact for a significant period of time?
No, sir.
Do you recall roughly how long the interaction took place?
I believe it's 1 second.
Okay. All right, let's go down to line 1210. This is at 8:55 or 20:55. And we see some things. It says iOS snapshots.
Yes, sir.
Then there's looks like it says something about Facebook to the far right there, correct?
Correct.
What, in your opinion, what's going on with the phone at this point?
So a snapshot or an iOS snapshot is something that your phone does when you minimize an app in the background. So if you close Facebook and put it kind of in the background, it takes a little snapshot of it. So when you pull it up, you can see what it is. It'll do this for, as we see here, Facebook, which we can pull up and see. It does this for a bunch of apps. Not all apps take a picture of it. Some things will just be a blank screen. For example, if you do your camera, it's not going to store a picture of what your camera was looking at. When you have it, it's just a black screen.
Okay. And so it does, in your opinion, does this mean anybody's actually accessing the Facebook app or actually physically taking snapshots on this phone?
No.
All right. In fact, it's not doing that, correct?
Correct.
All right. And in fact, in your view, the time frame on this report's 8:53 to approximately 9:08 p.m., correct?
Yes.
And during that time, in your review, was Maggie's phone locked or unlocked?
That was locked.
Okay. And it remained locked starting at what time? You may have to draw on your memory because this doesn't start till 8:53, but it's prior to 8:53, correct?
Yes.
All right, and it remains locked until the next day, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then we're going to scroll down, starting at line 1243. I see a whole bunch of stuff here. And just generally speaking, what is all this stuff in this database at this time?
It's just background processes that your phone's running.
Okay. And I think we already skipped by it, so I'm just going to ask you real quick. But in this this time frame, we also see, looks like the Siri app pop up in the NOC database,
Yes.
correct? And how can the Siri app be triggered?
It could be a background process that's going on, or it could be triggered by somebody holding the power button or interacting with Siri.
Okay. All right, and we're almost done here.
5:15.
I'll be done by then.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the information is in this log, but did you identify a time after 9 o'clock when Maggie's screen turned off?
When her screen turned off?
Yes.
Yes.
And was that at 9:07 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay. And after 9:07 p.m., did you identify at any point over the next few minutes or over the next 20 minutes that Maggie's screen turned on?
I believe it turned back on at 9:31.
Okay. So between 9:07 and 9:31, Maggie's screen is off, correct?
Yes.
All right. And it also, you just said this a minute ago, it's also locked during that time, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so if Maggie's phone were thrown between 9:07 and 9:31, when the screen's off and the phone is locked, in your opinion, would you see an orientation change?
No, sir. That version of iOS that she has on her phone did not log that at that particular time.
So that version, which was what at that time?
14.6.
All right. And that version of iOS, if a screen's off and the phone's locked, the phone's not going to record an orientation change.
That is correct.
Okay. No further questions, John.
All right. We're going to adjourn for the day, ladies and gentlemen, and resume at 9:30 to tomorrow morning. But everyone will stay in place until the jury leaves. With regard to the court's earlier ruling excluding not allowing the roadside shooting incident during cross-examination, I find that the defense opened the door to all of that testimony by questioning the witness as to the relationship between Mr. Murdaugh and Eddie Smith, payment of money to buy drugs, indebtedness, his overall relationship, and in order to not mislead the jury and to, under the doctrine of completeness and fairness, the court reverses its decision and will allow examination of witnesses regarding that relationship. And we'll be in recess till tomorrow morning, 9:30.